Hello, everyone. I had a few minutes today to spare, and I wanted to share a conversation I had with a young blood a while back. Although it's not recent, it's relevant. I remember the conversation um, last night after briefly listening to some thoughts on a podcast talking about what to do with Pan African scholars. Now, the conversation with the brother went something like this. We have been talking about family trees and our people reclaiming this land. Out of the blue, the sibling said, your generation fumbled the ball. They didn't pick up where the people in the 1970s, like the Black Panthers, had left off. I was shocked by him saying that. However, I understood that's what each generation do. They analyze, or in other words, be critical of the previous generations. Believe it or not, this is normal. Okay? So, anyway, the young man went on to be critical and of Generation X. Okay? And he praised a so called scholar for their work. Here enters my confusion. The scholar he was talking about is really a Pan African. But of the last few years, they started presenting themselves to the new awakening of millennials and Generation Zs as a go to person for knowledge. So I stopped the young blood and I asked him if he knew about the man he was giving praise to. And he really didn't. But then he went on to admit that, oh yeah, he used to be, he used to uh, do Pan African stuff. I asked him if he knew the man he was giving praise to helped to delude my generation and the boomers, which was his generation, with Pan African misdirections. He then tells me, yeah, but he's dropping gems now. My confusion is, how can Generation X, which is my generation, be criticized for not carrying the baton from the previous generation, but a man who intentionally misled our people, which included my generation, so as to earn a living? I'm confused now. How is he okay? People talk about Jesse Jackson and his betrayal of our people. Jesse Jackson maintained a tribal identity, all while selling our people down the Africa narrative. He openly misled his people. And here we have generations now that can see that and call it for what it is. I listen to siblings of various ages tear Jesse Jackson asunder. Rightfully so, but they recognize how destructive he was to his people by misleading them. Those same people are giving so-called scholars with Pan-African past a pass. They're giving them a welcoming to cross the fence. Make that make sense. These scholars are seeing the Pan African movement, the Pan African acceptance dissolve because Now our people are being put in a situation where we have to delineate. And that's not Pan-African like. We're supposed to continue being goofy and become one big giant Negro, as they say. Right? But these scholars, so-called scholars with Pan-African roots, like I said, they're seeing their movement dissolve. And so they're crossing the fence and are trying to make a living off of the American Indian, foundational Black American, foundation, foundational American, Soulanis, all of these identities that we have. These people are trying to cross the fence and be scholars to those identities. And then try to trick our people back to think that, oh, well, even though you belong here in the Americas, you still, everybody still comes from Africa. You know what's troubling about all of this besides that is that these same so-called Pan-African scholars, a few of them, I think what about four of them that I know of, have admitted to having indigenous grandmothers. They even went so far as to name the tribes that they came from. Okay? Um, but then they spent a whole lifetime making a living lying to their own collective. Do you see why I'm confused? Why these people are being welcomed and treated like they're given reverence. They're given reverence and a great deal of respect, and all of which is unearned. These people are Judas. They're Judases. They sold their people up the river. You know the narrative that says that the Africans had sold Africans to the transatlantic slave trade and all of that stuff. Well, that didn't happen, but the selling of our people, that happened. These people, these so-called scholars, they gave all that bad information that they knew was. These people are still, they are betrayers. Why do they get a pass? Oh, so they tell you some truths. They tell you some truths, and that wash away all the lies that they told our people. They have destroyed our people. And yet we have young bloods asking, well, why did Generation X not carry the baton? What? So, like I said, uh, I'm thoroughly confused why these people get a pass. What makes their betrayal of our people not so bad in comparison to Jesse Jackson's betrayal? Somebody, please explain